Hey there, all you cool cats and kittens. Welcome to Whip It Up with Will. Working title, don't really like it, but we'll see what happens. By popular demand, I'm going to teach you how to cook something today, and instead of doing it on my normal Snapchat, I've decided to just put it as a YouTube video so that I'll stay, and I'll include the recipe at the end with some additional instructions, but also I find it easier to follow along. So today we're going to make Kevin's famous chili, adapted for Will's famous chili. And I'm going to teach you how to do that today. So I've done all the prep work over here. I've got all my cans open, I've got all my seasonings done, onions already roasted. So when you see me just add stuff in, I did that prep work, and again I'm going to put in the instructions at the end. So what you're going to need as far as the stove goes is you're going to need one big old pot. Okay, and I got this on low right now, nothing's in it yet. I'm going to put some onions in it in a minute. You're going to need a big pan for browning the ground beef. You never put in raw beef into anything. You always have to brown it first. If there's no colors, there's not going to be that much flavor. It's going to get mushy. You don't want that. So you got to brown the beef first before we put it in. We'll get to that part, and I've got a pot of some beef stock warming over here as well. So we're going to get to all those ingredients in a little bit. So first step, got the big pot going. This isn't on. We got it warming up nice and hot. And add some olive oil. A little bit more. Want to coat the whole bottom. And in we go. Okay. So we start with the onions. We're going to cook these down a little bit. We just use olive oil. You don't use butter because butter will burn faster. We also don't put any garlic in now because same reason, garlic burns. So we're going to cook down the onions slow, and then we're going to start browning some of this beef on the side as well. I'm using about 5 pounds of beef and 1 pound of pork. I like to do like a 1-to-4, 1-to-5 ratio when it comes to my chili. So there you go. You can do the same thing with turkey, whatever. So I've got enough here that I'm not going to be able to brown it all at once. But we'll get this pan going, and then I'm going to start browning it while I'm cooking down these onions. I've got these onions on like, medium, low heat. These can go nice and slow, and then we'll go from there, okay? Alright, so now I'm going to show you some of the things you're going to need. I have some of the other stuff in the fridge because I don't want to keep it out, but we'll go through those. Here's some of the main stuff. Also, as my lovely wife and camera operator pointed out, I touched my nose twice. I did wash my hands just now, so there you go. So some of the things that you're going to need, just waiting, and again, I'm just waiting for this to heat up. Got some cannellini beans, or however the hell you say that. 2 cans of dark red kidney beans, 1 drained, 1 not drained. You want to get some of that liquid in there. Some tomato puree, and a little bit of just tomato sauce. That's all about texture, right? So you don't want it to just be soup. You do want your chili to have a little bit of a strong base. I also like to do a good amount of beef stock. So I've got about 3 to 4 cups of beef stock in there. Again, that's going to vary based on, how much chili you're making. And then over here, of course, I got the ground beef, and I've got the pork. I have some roasted corn here, so I just roasted this in a pan on high heat for a while. I like the roasted corn better. It gives a little bit more texture and flavor. And I've got some garlic over here. I have 1 garlic here for visual aid. We're going to put that in later once the onion's done cooking. So now I'm going to throw in some beef because we got the pan nice and hot. Okay. You're going to use a different utensil than the one you're cooking chili because this is raw beef. Okay. So we're just browning it. We're not cooking it all the way, so there can be like a little pink in there. But once this is done browning, then you can throw it right into the pot, because about that time the onions will be cooked down a little bit, and then you can start cooking it and adding some of your liquid. Okay. All right. So just brown the beef. I did drain some of the fat. Don't put it down the drain. put it in one of the empty cans. That really depends on how much, how healthy you want to be. So I drained about half the fat, and now we can just go ahead and throw some of this in there. Okay, once we put in some of the beef, once the onions have cooked down, again, we'll get started on the next batch. Then we can start adding some liquid. So we'll take some of our tomato puree, dump that in there. Same thing with tomato sauce. And again, I'll put in all the measurements and everything. Also make sure you don't put in the lid, because then you guys will fish out like this, like an idiot. Okay? And then we're going to put in some of that beef stock. Okay. Otherwise, then we just have cooked hamburger and onions. Also, my wife pointed out I touched my nose again. I'm going to wash my hands again for multiple reasons. Okay, so I got the beef in here. I'm just cooking down the pork. The pork will go really quick. You don't have to brown this as much, but you do want to get, it cooked down a little bit because you don't want mushy pork in there. So everyone's in there with the beef stock and the tomatoes. I do like to keep a little extra beef stock on the side so that I can pour into the pan. Just deglaze the pan a little bit, get some of that nice flavor, and then I pop that in there. Now we're going to start putting in some of the extra stuff. Let us stir. Okay. I have the stove on low, okay, because we don't need this getting hot, right? We want it nice and warm so it bubbles a little bit, but not too hot. Now we can throw in our roasted corn, okay, our garlic. I'll put in like the measurements of everything later at the end. Now we can put in our beans. So we got dark red kidney beans. I drained this can. Okay. 2 cans of it. This can I did not drain. Reason being is you want a little bit of that extra kidney bean flavor. That's why we do 2 cans of kidney beans and we only drain 1. Okay. So, in there. And the cannellini beans, I'm probably pronouncing wrong. Which those always get stuck at the bottom. Okay. Now you could add some extra beans too, like pinto beans go great. Black beans I've used before. Basically what I'm teaching you today is just how to like make a base for chili. How to make like, chili that you can then play with a little bit. If you want to add a little bit more spice when we get to that part, go for it. I like to keep it a little bit more neutral and flavorful. That way if you want to add some extra heat you can, but it's not built in there already. Next we're going to add some of our spices, mostly paprika, salt, garlic powder, onion powder, a little bit of chili powder, chili flakes, fresh ground pepper of course. Throw that in there. Ketchup. Okay? Why ketchup? Because my stock has a tomato base. It's a tomato base and beef stock mixture. I had a little bit extra ketchup because the ketchup already has built-in sugar and vinegar in there. That way I'm not adding extra ingredients I don't need to. It's all built into the ketchup. So we're going to get this cooking down, mixed in. Again, we keep it on low. Throw in a little bit of that beef stock that I had cooking over here. Some of that pan dripping. If you want to add more beef stock, if you feel like it didn't add enough, go for it. So this is what it looks like now. Come on in. So this is what it looks like now. Other things we're going to add in a little bit is going to be some of the, we're going to add a little bit of sriracha. We're going to add a little bit of Frank's, and I got some peppers cooking in the oven. Let's take a look at those. Not quite done yet. I'm blistering the peppers, which is basically where you can do that in a pan too, but you basically take the peppers and you cook them. When you blister them on the pan, you don't put any oil in, you just literally cook them, and they're going to look like they're blistering. That brings out a little bit of extra flavor, a little bit of that charred grill flavor. Again, that goes with kind of browning the beef, the heat. Makes sense. 3 peppers I'm using are a big green bell pepper, I got 2 jalapenos, and I got a big poblano pepper. Those are the peppers I like. Again, you can add some peppers, change it up a little bit. That's up to you. Okay? So once those peppers are done, we're going to chop those up just like the onions, throw them in the pot. I'm going to add a little bit of sriracha and Frank's Red Hot in a second. Alright, so if you're wondering what blistered peppers look like, there you go. Might look like they're burnt, but you flip them over, they're perfectly fine. You do want them to get a little black like that. So just finished blistering these. I'm going to chop them up, and then we're going to get on to the final step. Chopped up the peppers, threw them in there. Pro tip, if they're still hot coming out of the oven, you want to chop them up, just throw them on a plate, put them in the freezer for a bit. It won't hurt your little fingies. So those are in there. We got the pot looking nice red and green like a spicy Christmas, right? Here we go, nice spicy Christmas. Okay, and we're gonna add one last thing, the most important ingredient. Shout out to my girl Julia Childs. Butter. This is all gonna be dependent on the flavor that you want. Here we got a certain amount of butter that I'm not gonna say in front of my wife, but you're gonna put that in there. It's gonna make the chili taste like rich and almost a little bit buttery with that heat, the tomato, the beef, the pork. Gonna really bring all that stuff. Also, I drained some of the fat out, so this is gonna bring some of that fat back in, some of that good fat. And like Julia Child said, butter is better. Okay? So we're gonna let that sit, cook down. Again, I've got it on a nice low heat. Things to look for is you can see a little bit of like bubbles come out, but you don't want it to boil. Texture is also important. So come on in, let me show you. So like this kind of texture, you want to find that in between like soup and oatmeal. It's got to be in between, right? If it's too soupy, then cool, you made beef soup. If it's too chunky, then you just made a sloppy joe. Great, good job. No, we're making chili here. It's in that middle, that balance. If you need to add a little bit more beef stock, I recommend that, as opposed to adding more tomato base. There's already plenty of that tomato base here. Stirring is also very important, right? You don't want to let it sit unattended too long, because then stuff will stick to the bottom and burn, and then the whole thing will taste like it burnt. So you should be checking on this every so often, but we're going to keep it on low, adjust the temperature as we go, and we're going to let this sit for a while to be ready by dinner.